If you could eliminate one common misconception from people's minds worldwide, which would it be and why? Voting isn't an endorsement and doesn't mean that you'd campaign for your selection. It's a choice between outcomes. Of the options presented, which is the one that you prefer to happen over the others? Sometimes that means you get what you want, and sometimes that's choosing the lesser evil. Either way, your vote has power. Believing that throwing your vote away is ever the optimal outcome, just because you don't like either choice, is the exact kind of apathy that the people that shouldn't have power want to instill in you. I'd eliminate the misconception that mental health issues are a sign of weakness or something to be ashamed of. This belief causes so much unnecessary suffering and prevents people from seeking help. Understand that mental health is just as important as physical health, and nothing to be stigmatized. It could dramatically improve countless lives and create a more compassionate, understanding society. Climate does not equal weather. As global average temps rise, that doesn't mean it can't be cold, it means the average has increased. So what before was, say, 10 to 100, becomes, say, 30 to 120. It's also easier to predict long-term climate patterns than it is to predict short-term weather events. So if you trust the weather forecast to plan your week, there is no reason not to doubt the easier to predict long-term climate forecasts. That US global immigration laws are extremely inhumane and unreasonable. I'm a US citizen. My wife has been waiting 3 years for her spousal visa to come to the USA after marrying abroad. We are human beings, and us citizens should have the right to bring their immediate family to the USA. If we could have a world with regulated borders, a good faith paths to residency, work, citizenship, that would be marvelous. If I had the opportunity, I would eliminate the misconception that mental health disorders are something to be ashamed of or weak. Many people struggle with mental health issues, and it is important to realize that it is normal and you should seek help without feeling embarrassed. Removing this misconception would help reduce stigma and improve access to quality mental health care for all who need it. The progressive tax code, $1 billion a year. You are going to pay the same taxes as everyone else to a certain income. You will pay a high rate on the income that exceeds the base incomes until you reach the top tax rate. In other words, you pay no taxes on the first $10,000 or so, the lowest tax rate on the next $30,000, and so on. You don't lose half your money on maroons. Life expectancy does not tell you how long someone will actually live in the given time period, as it takes the average of diseases, wars, bad hygiene, terrible living conditions, etc. So, if someone avoided going to war and was relatively healthy, they could easily reach their 60s in the Middle Ages. Whether you would want to is a completely different issue. Artificial sweeteners do not increase the risk for cancer. The study that linked the two has widely been misinterpreted. Enough dose of aspartame to cause negative effects. Nor will aspartame ever reach the point in the intestines where the cells in the study were. Source from it will be metabolized before that point. That TV shows and movies frequently portray CPR as something you stop when there is no pulse or heartbeat. It usually goes something like one person starts CPR and another says there is no pulse, heartbeat. They're gone, and then they stop the chest compressions. No. That's exactly why you do chest compressions. That's not a reason to stop them. That just because I'm a conservative that makes me a racist and a bigot. I love discussion, but I am just as quick to succumb to anger when I feel I'm being attacked or looked down upon. If you aren't going to try to understand my point of view, why would I try to understand yours? This coming from the bona fide liberal I was up until 2017-ish. The idea that God hates them or will not forgive them because they are too far gone. There is only one sin that God will not forgive, and it is exceptionally rare and basically requires you to have seen God or heard him. It is called blasphemy against the Holy Ghost. Anyone else has sinned does not go to hell and can be forgiven. The other are bad people. It's easy to live in an echo chamber online and demonize others. SW politics and religion. Most everyone is just trying to be a good person and get the most out of their lives. Having good discourse and conversation is conducive to intellectual development and greater sense, interpersonal purpose. That fossil fuels are People living in West make maximum knows about civilization would collapse within us without fossil fuels. We v climate change activists who think protesting, throwing all over art, gluing to roads saves them survive a month without fossil fuels or their products. People get diabetes because of a failure in the pancreas, not because they are constantly eating poorly. There are obese people who do not have diabetes. There are skinny people who have diabetes, both T1 and T2. Stop blaming the average-sized person for being diabetic. They did nothing to make themselves diabetic. No, you can't karate chop someone on the back of their neck, and they will pass out for a few hours before waking up perfectly alert. Doctors start panicking when the time a person is unconscious lasts more than a minute or two. Usually people regain consciousness in less than 30 seconds after a severe head blow. We need religion to be moral. Hang out and socialize. Go to heaven, etc. Then we could actually invest in schools and community groups with purpose. There's a lot of architectural, time, and financial waste. The only good thing is that it gets a lot of people out of the way when you go to certain places on Sunday. That not understanding something isn't grounds for chalking it up to some imaginary deity or responding to it with fear. It's a reason to investigate, to research and figure out how it works. What a wonderful world we'd live in if we'd replace superstition and fear of the unknown with curiosity and an open mind. Being disabled is not limited to being paralyzed or blind. Someone who requires a service dog that has a disability that another person can't physically see. It doesn't mean they're fine falsely claiming having a disability. No need to harass their SD handler if someone thinks nothing is wrong with them. That speaking good English is a sign of intelligence. This is prevalent in many non-English speaking countries, especially in South and Southeast Asia. Eliminate this misconception. Most people in these countries speak two or more languages, and most people are judged if you don't speak good English. The idea that depressed people are visibly looking feeling sad all the time, can be outgoing and charming around other people, high-functioning or productive, yet still battle depression because you feel empty within the hobbies and routines you enjoyed in your everyday life. Tough call. And want to make the world a worse place when almost all of them are trying to be good people and want to make the world a better place. I disagree with you and usually me on how to accomplish that. That humans can be trained to be fundamentally good to each other. Never has happened. Never will. But while I'm fine if they keep trying to imagine it into reality, legislating it into reality is always subject to unintended consequences. Don't blame me. I voted for Kodos. The definition of compensation. You do not get compensation for having to wait a minute longer than you thought or because something doesn't actually work in the manner you decided or thought. You can, however, receive compensation from people if they punch you in the face. Just one. Dang, okay. Ing-Pav automatically involves there being an actual conflict that requires defensive tactical action. It is perfectly acceptable to agree to disagree, still be civil adults. Or at least it should be. Immigration is a good thing for countries, and is a reason the USA is a powerhouse, as well as other countries that soak up immigrants, i.e. France. An amazing book on this is Streets of Gold, written by two economists whose names I can't recall. People to understand their beliefs are choices and the things they are typically bigoted against. Because of those beliefs are usually not choices, which means STFU, you're being a piece of shit. The misconception that an individual does a good job of perceiving the world and should trust the beliefs and assumptions they've created based on their observations. IYK we should constantly question our grasp over truth and reality. Anything involving vaccines. Not sure if it's better to remove the cause autism or the implanting microchips. XTOB. Measles is back and will kill lots of children whose parents listen to Facebook posts more than doctors. That you splash and scream and flail when you're drowning, because that's not what it looks like. Floating is the key to surviving. That bad people will do bad things. Every time they do happen, we rely on good people with guns to save us. I propose to allow more goose people with guns to be available at all times. End gun-free zones and keep America safe. Hey man. The business owner's taking a risk. Nope. Zero risk. None. If their business fails, what do? They go back to being a worker like the rest of us. Eat the rich, tax corporations, unionize your workplace. The idea that feminism is the same as hatred for men. No, I don't hate men. I just want equal rights, equal opportunity, and equal pay as men. I don't want men to have less, I just want women to have the same as men. That being a prick while arguing with strangers on the internet makes you correct, or is in any way indicative of moral intellectual superiority. Not like, I've never done it. But it's not helpful or constructive. That cows give milk without having been pregnant. Because they don't, and I didn't know about the cruelty that comes with animal farming for 24 years of my life. I wish I knew about this sooner. It is really bad. That talking about a good deed negates the goodness of it. Social behaviors are contagious. If people talk freely about good things they've done, that can spread just as quickly as negative behaviors do. That rural people are stupid, they aren't. They may not have the same kind of knowledge as people who spend their time in city colleges, but there is a ton they know that is important to their world. That when you choose to follow religion, that should help guide your own personal choices, and it should have no effect on anyone besides you. It should make you a better person, not anyone else. The misconception that people with great wealth are somehow smarter, more capable, and have more value as a human than anyone else. If we could just get that message to the one, that might be enough. That people who are sick, poor, or unfortunate got that way because they have bad character, and that the reason you and your family aren't in the same position is because you're better than them.